my bookkeeper comes to me and she goes, payroll's on Thursday. I go, She goes, there's no money in the account. I go, oh, no, we just billed $100,000. And she goes, yeah, we're not getting that for 90 days. Oh, is this cash flow? That's what that term is, right? Cash flow.
This season of Unicorn Leaders, we're exploring the Davids who take on the giants, who take on the Goliaths, the founders and the creators who refuse to play by the old rules, who choose to rewrite the rules. My name is Fahd Al-Hatab. I am your host, and I'm the founder of Unicorn Labs and this Unicorn Leadership podcast. And I'm excited for today's guest because today's guest is Ron Tite, both someone who is a dear friend, someone I've gotten to know over the years, but someone who is brilliant in their approach to thinking differently. He's a comedian, he's an author, and he's the founder of Church+State. And he walked away from a very big, comfortable, high-paying advertising job in order to start something scrappy, something honest, something human, something that felt more connected. The spark for him came during a commercial shoot where he had this huge crew and massive budget, and all for this 15-second ad that less and less people were watching because it was on TV and it wasn't on the new media platforms. This is early days of social media, and he goes, nobody really knows what they're doing here with social, nor do I, so maybe I can figure this out. So he dives into it. This moment during that big shoot pushes him to leave the safety of the global agency world and build on his own. But building on his own as a one-man shop, Ron goes through a lot of challenges, whether it's trying to figure out his role and cash flow and how to lead a team, but how to be creative. And he builds Church+State, a Canadian agency that blurs the line between advertising and entertainment, seeing media as essential for all companies, and all companies becoming a media company. Their work didn't just sell, it got people talking, got people laughing, it got people wanting to actually engage. And it wasn't no longer advertising, but it was connecting with other people. And against all odds, Ron's team went head-to-head with global giants like Havas or Ogilvy, and they won clients like Walmart and DoorDash by trusting imperfection over polish, ideas over hierarchy, and by pushing the envelope on contrarian ideas. This is a story of a creative rebel who redefines what an agency could be and proved that in a world of Goliaths, the real power lies in rewriting the rules, in thinking differently, and in contrarian ideas, not being a conformist. Let's dive into this episode with Ron. So Ron, you've had a career in creative marketing. Over the last decade, you've built your own agency, Church+State, and you've been, quite successful with it. But you started in the industry working for some of the big guys. And so today we're going to kind of talk about the David versus Goliath, the little guys versus the big guys, and how do we compete? How do we carve out space? How do we stand out in markets where people are flushed with capital? And here you are, like, I've got an idea and like some sweat to give, right? And I think you are the epitome of someone who uses storytelling, brand, culture, and strategy combined in a way to really slice through the noise and find ways to not compete with Goliath in his traditional sense. Because if you try and take on that fight, you'll always lose.
Oh, they could take us out in a heartbeat.
Yeah. And so talk to me a little bit about your career upbringings. Where did things get started for you after university? Give me a little bit of background on Ron.
Sure. So most people who sit in this chair, I did a phys ed degree.
Oh, right.
Naturally.
Right. I could see that you'd be a fun gym teacher.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about now, but then maybe. So I did that. I had no idea. Like no one in my family went to university. We weren't a white collar family. We were a very blue collar family. So I didn't know about jobs and careers and stuff. I just thought I was going to be a teacher because the people I looked up to were the only exposure to white collar jobs were teachers. I knew nothing else. Yeah. So I went to my wrestling coach. I was like, what'd you do? And he said, I went to Queens and did a phys ed degree. I was like, all right, I'll do that. So I did that. And then, then I started working in the business school at Queens. It's like, what's this business that, And I started to just get exposed culturally, to different people and whose parents had different jobs and stuff. Like, oh, maybe I could do something else. I don't just need to do that thing. And so I just kind of, opened the aperture a little bit on it. And so this was, I graduated in 1993. So this is like literally the beginning of the internet.
Yes.
Okay. So like to the point I had an email address as a student, but I didn't know what it was.
And it's not like you were a student of the internet. Like it's
No. But as I then entered the workforce in the Queen's Business School, this thing starts to grow. And so I went in and thought, nobody knows this. So if I'm the guy who doesn't know business and nobody knows the internet, I'm just going to go into that.
I'm gonna be the guy who knows the internet.
Everybody's new.
Yeah.
It's kind of like I never skied growing up, and so I never went on ski trips because was the guy that didn't know how to ski. But when snowboarding came in, nobody knew how to snowboard. So like, I'm gonna be a snowboarder. So I started snowboarding because nobody else.
Isn't that just an interesting like theme?
Yeah. So it's just like, I'm just gonna go into I'm curious about this.
Yeah. I'm gonna go do the thing that everyone else currently sucks at.
Yeah.
And I feel okay and comfortable being the guy that also doesn't know.
Yeah.
And if I spend enough time in it, I'll actually be one of the few people who do know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's not like I'm going to go to investment banking and compete with people who have 3 generations of investment bankers who've grown up around the dinner table with that conversation. So I did that. We were partnered with an agency, and I decided to leave this web shop. And one of the partners of the agency came to me and he goes, "You ever think about working in advertising?" Did not know it existed as a career.
I didn't know you can work in advertising.
Yeah. And he goes, you should work with us. And I said, all right. And it was as an account person. He goes,
Isn't it so interesting? Those little moments shape our lives.
Entirely.
Your entire life is reshaped because one person came up and was
so
like,
sharp.
"Hey, yeah.
What he saw was that I was funny. And he was like, this guy's funny.
It's got personality."
Clients will like that. I think that was really the extent of it. But it was a huge risk on his part. So I did that. And so I did that, and we started like doing comedy. And because I really was curious about the process of comedy and like, how does somebody just do that? So I just started doing comedy and stand up. And then at some point, like, I just wanted those jobs to come together. And I didn't want to be an account guy. I wanted to be a creative guy. And so became writer, then senior writer, then associate creative director, executive creative director.
And so your in was writing.
Yeah.
That was sort of the Venn diagram of your skills as a sort of working on comedy. So you had to learn to write in sort of kind of pieces. And
I didn't know I could write because nobody had ever asked me to write before. But when I look back, grade 4, I was reading, there were these books called Encyclopedia Brown. And Gordon Corman wrote the book, This Can't Be Happening with Donald Hall, when he was 13 years old. It then becomes a massive sensation. And I thought, that guy can write that at 13. I can write something. So I wrote an Encyclopedia Brown story and gave it to my teacher, and my teacher read it to the class. And I just wrote it to write it. It wasn't a homework assignment. It wasn't bonus points. I just did it to do it. And I think back, I'm like, well, that kid, I was a writer.
yeah.
But I just, somewhere along the way, I got this like, oh, I don't know how to do that. I know a writer in my family. And it wasn't until years later, John Irving was, like me, a wrestler. And he competed as a wrestler at the collegiate level. John Irving, when he's in college, discovers he has a love of writing. He then is torn because jocks don't write. He's a wrestler. He's on the wrestling team. So he continually...
Too soft writing.
Yeah. But he goes to his coach and he says, I can't make the meet because I'm going to see my girlfriend. And his girlfriend was his writing.
Huh.
He had no girlfriend. And so he wrote this book called The Imaginary Girlfriend, and that it was his love of writing that he didn't even know he had. Okay. So John Irving wrote that book. It was dedicated to his wrestling coach. Flash forward 20 years, 25 years. I'm at dinner with Jesse Finkelstein,
Yes.
the publisher of my second and third books. Right there is John Irving. And it was one of the nicest moments of my life to go to this guy and say, you know, people say, oh, you changed my life. This book fundamentally changed my life. And I was so proud to say, I read your book, Imaginary Girlfriend. I was a phys ed grad. I was a wrestler. Didn't know I could write. This is the publisher of my second book. And he was lovely and gracious and everything. But to have that moment, I hope for him was special that, you know, because you don't know the size of your impact.
Mm-hmm.
But that was a really big moment for me. And so, yeah, I became a writer without knowing that I was one.
Yeah. I think the universe conspired in your favor there. Like, put him, you know, you're publishing your second book, brought him to dinner and just said, let me close this loop here.
And now I can't even imagine living life without writing every day.
Which is, I mean, it's funny that you say, looking back, you know, in grade 4, that was, you did something, but it faded along the way. That's your first book. Your first book, Everyone's an Artist.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, it
exactly.
literally is that we give up these identities.
Yeah.
We go, I'm not good enough, therefore I'm not.
Yeah.
But really just embracing that a writer is someone who writes versus being good at, right? Like,
Yeah, exactly.
it's
A
the
writer
act.
is somebody who writes. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, it's the act. And I think one of my favorite parts there is you talk about that art is generous.
Mhm.
That it's sort of a gift, and you write not with the purpose of other people reading, but it's to simply give your gift to the world.
Yeah.
And if you align yourself with that, you more freely share.
Yep.
That was very powerful for me reading.
Oh, wow.
We met at Epic. I forget, it was 2019, and then I picked, I saw you speak, and I was like, I like his comedy, I like his style. I picked up your book, and I remember reading through that, and I think I was earlier in my entrepreneurial journey and obsessed with results.
Yeah.
And I would keep reminding myself, just keep giving my gift to the world.
Yep.
And if I can just keep doing that long enough, I will be paid for my gift one day.
Not all of it will convert.
No.
But some will. And who knows which ones, but something will.
Yeah.
And it allows you to, once you change that mindset, it becomes about self-expression, and whoever wants it and takes it and likes it, they get something out of it. You can express that take in a million different ways on a million different platforms. And sometimes you don't get it right, and sometimes you find your way until you're like, I've settled into the comfy seat of this thing, and this is what I love doing.
So how much of that passion that you discovered during your writing and your creative years leads you to this moment where you decide to leave the corporate? I've been a part of these Goliaths, and it's time for me to spread my own wings. It's time for me to. That's a scary moment, especially you're talking about your background here, right? You didn't do business school. It's not in your immediate vicinity, but you've spent time in the industry.
Yeah.
So there is that.
Yeah, I think it was a perfect storm of things. So I was at Sharp Blackmore, Bill Sharp, Tom Blackmore became Havas. They sold to Havas. So we were a big global agency. And
Yeah, you truly were at one of the Goliaths.
And so there are a couple of things that happened. So one, like Bill and Tom had sold, and they were, it was no longer their shop. They reported, they had jobs, they reported to people, right? So that changes the dynamic and the culture right away. So it wasn't like it used to be. Not that that can't be good, but it wasn't what it was. Secondly, like speaking started to develop, and there's only so many holidays you can take to go do speaking, So I felt like I needed to control my own destiny a little bit more. And I think it was fair that they have a hand in that, and me going and saying, here's a bunch of stuff I'd like to do. I just needed the freedom to do it. And again, not that they were controlling. I just didn't want to put that on them. The third part was that this was a really interesting time in the business where this was the rise of social media, and really people really discovering or exploring what digital could be from an advertising perspective. No one's figured that out. I'm going to go and figure that out.
I'm going to go suck at the thing everyone sucks at.
I'm going to go suck at the thing that everybody sucks at.
I think that's just such a, yeah.
Yeah. And so I left, and it was just like, and I didn't know what it was going to be. And I just knew that there were these dynamic forces at play, and I wanted to figure them out before anybody else. And the only way to do that, or the way that I wanted to do it, was just 100% controlling my own destiny.
Yeah.
So I left.
Yeah.
I also knew at that point I was probably doing 20 to 25 speaking engagements a year.
So you had a little base. Yeah, you knew you.
Like, I could live off that. I was single. I'm like, I can live off that.
Yeah.
If this
worst case scenario. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's interesting, because I think like entrepreneurship is often glamorized in social media.
Yeah.
And then it's often also made to be this like all in huge bet, take the biggest amount of risk. And then every time I spend time with entrepreneurs, myself and others, it goes, no, I had a few, I already knew I had some money here, which allowed me to give me enough space to play.
Yeah.
Because one of the other themes, and I'm curious how this one will play out for you, but one of the other themes we see in the Davids versus Goliaths is survive long enough to find your slingshot.
Yeah.
And if you can't survive long enough, you die too early.
Yep.
And your slingshot was just a year away, just 2 years away of figuring it out, but you just couldn't adapt long enough. You couldn't survive long enough.
First 2 years of the business is all about staying in business.
Yeah.
That's all it is. Just stay in business and not sell your soul and do stuff but like stay on the long-term path of where you're going, but stay in business. And
What were those first 2 years for you? What did they look like?
Horrible. Well, horrible in that I feel bad for the people who joined me in that journey.
Yes.
Right? Because I
I
didn't
did a
want to.
clip the other day about things I wish I could apologize to my first teams.
Yeah.
Of like, I'm sorry.
Oh, the chaos that was just
my
like,
disorganization, my poor leadership, me getting upset at this thing that I probably shouldn't have gotten upset about. Like, just not knowing and saying yes to all these clients that with things we didn't know what to do. And
Yeah.
100%.
Because you always have this utopia of like what it's going to be like. If I was running this place, I'd have art on the walls and we'd have a pianist in, And so you say yes to everything. And, now would I change anything? No, because we eventually found our way. But those first couple of years, I also had no business background. I was a creative director. I had no financial responsibility ever in my life.
But you were used to doing pitches?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Pitch. If the one thing I could do well was pitch.
Just pitch.
I could pitch.
You're like, that actually, that's okay, so you could get the business, because that's hard.
100%. Like,
Okay.
there's a myth, I think, that when you leave a big thing to go and start a small thing, or at least in advertising, it's really arrogant. But you go, these people love me, they're going to come, they're going to follow me. Of course they're going to. They love doing business with me.
Yeah.
They're going to come and open my shop, and I'm going to immediately guess this client, this client, this client. The art of pitching and stuff certainly is something that comes naturally, presentations, yada, yada. But it's not that easy either. They're not just following you blind. Speaking is funding the business, right?
Of course.
I'm hiring people, speaking, and I'm saying, I'm not taking that project. I'm not taking that project. That doesn't fit into my long-term vision.
Oh, wow. Okay. Hey, good on you.
Yeah.
I didn't say no to anything in that first year. Okay.
I was very selective. And because speaking was funding it, right? And then something happens. 1, I get married. 2, I buy a new house, go on a honeymoon, all that kind of stuff. We win our first big piece of business where I've got to now staff up. I've got to hire 4 people. I think it was 4 people. As you know, there's no speaking in the summertime.
Yeah.
Mid-August. And my bookkeeper comes to me and she goes, payroll's on Thursday. I go, mm-hmm. She goes, there's no money in the account. I go, oh, no, we just billed $100,000. And she goes, yeah, we're not getting that for 90 days. Oh, is this cash flow? That's what that term is, right? Cash flow. She's like, that's what we mean when we say cash flow. I go, okay. So what do we do? And she goes, well, you didn't get a line of credit. And I go, well, there's no money.
And you can't get a line of credit when you're in your worst position.
Can't get a line of
You
credit.
can't get a line of credit when you have cash.
Yeah. So I go, what do we do? She's like, no, you tell me what we're going to do.
So, well, you're the bookkeeper. You're the finance person.
So I had to call the client, Vikram Verghese, and say to Vikram, I need you to courier me that check. And if you courier me that check, and I lived another day, I promise you that I will give up equity to bring in somebody who can run this agency on a daily basis and have a keener eye on operations and finance. And it'll never happen again. And if it happens again, you fire me. He got the check. He couriered me the check.
I find in the Davids, you end up partnering with your customers.
Mm-hmm.
Your customers, in his case, your customers invested in his business, took skin in the game. And in your case, the customers gave you a lifeline.
Yeah.
Like and your customers know it's not, it feels so transactional to call them customers sometimes in that case, right? They really became partners.
100%.
And I think that's the big difference in a lot of our Davids versus like Goliaths, right? When you are just one of, we have 2,000 customers and, kind of get through this.
Yeah, because it goes both ways. The good marketers, they know it goes both ways. That when they see your imperfections and they embrace those imperfections, they understand, oh, this is full Ron.
Yes.
Like, this is the guy who's going to tell us the truth, right? And there's no BS with, now this relationship is a place where he can't bullshit us.
Yes.
And so Vikram knew, like, oh no, I messed up. My boss, needs this. I'd be the first one to go, I got it. I got your back, like that's good.
Yeah.
He's not going to get that from a global enterprise.
Mm-hmm.
He's not going to get it. They're like, I'm sorry, we have a process. We need 2 weeks. You pay your bill. We stop working, like yada, yada. So I think that, those great relationships, some people flock to those relationships. Other people, quite frankly, I'd be fired in a heartbeat and they would move on.
Yeah. Would you give a lot of credit to partnership in terms of being able to compete as a small agency in this world of behemoths who are trying to eat up.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, from a personal partnership, like, I do stuff that Robin does, but Robin certainly does stuff that I'm not good at. She has a strength in it. She has a passion in it. You need to be completely self-aware of what you bring to the table and seek out people who backfill your weaknesses. And so at some point, she came in as president and I was CEO. And at some point I was like, you need to be CEO. Like, I'm not a good CEO. You should be CEO. And so I'm in this weird place where I have majority equity, but she's actually the CEO because she's way better at that job than I am.
Genuinely, I think there are a lot of people that hold on to CEO roles because they were the initial founder.
Right. Yeah. It's Elon Musk, on X, like that kind of thing. And I never wanted that. And I don't think there is that.
Yeah. So what does the journey look like? So you get an equity partner in, you start, shuffling the deck around a little bit here, you start getting your first big contract. How do you figure out a way to carve some space in this market? What are some of the initial strategies for you?
Yeah. So the first thing was I saw something happening. So the first thing was like, well, what's the product, right? Like what, because if we're just going to build a better mousetrap, they don't buy that.
Right.
So
We're just another marketing services agency.
another agency that does the same
Okay,
thing.
sure.
So initially at that stage, with the rise of social and stuff, I, saw that there was, low cost of production and instantaneous distribution. And so what that was doing was, the world of niche content was developing. I just remember one of my first consulting gigs, even before I had completely officially launched the agency, was with a radio broadcaster.
Yeah.
And we looked at their morning radio shows and stuff. And so I just wrote this line that media properties need to be brands and brands need to be media properties, because I saw them going like, but we're a radio show. Like, well, no, you're way bigger than that. You need to think like a brand. And someone came to me and said, oh, that's content marketing. I go, it's a thing. Well,
It's not I came up with this myself.
I thought it's my thing. They're like, no, that fully exists. It's called content marketing. And so we started as that. And 6 months in, then the rules changed, where organic content on its own was no longer driving a ton of engagement. Now you need to spruce it up with some cash, right? So then it became like, oh, then everything's an ad now. So call it what you want, but if you're putting paid advertising behind it, it's an ad.
And now your sales bias is too in it. Like that's
Yeah,
the
100%.
interesting tension.
Yeah.
I've seen recently there's an interesting rise of brands making these mini TV shows on social. I don't know, have you seen it where they're literally where it's like a series. It's like literally a show. And there's this one that did really well, which is like they go into a little coffee shop and there's this interaction between the customer and the barista, and every day is another story.
Yeah.
I don't see the coffee shop. They're not selling a single thing
Right.
aside from this like really funny interaction. And it just caught me in. And so we're seeing, and I feel like that's the tension that I guess you're trying to get at, which is like content marketing that isn't selling, but is building a relationship.
Yeah. So I think in the end, where we carved out was like, oh, maybe it's not about outcome and output, that maybe it's about the process to get there. And it doesn't matter whether it's a Facebook post or whether it's a book or whether it's a TV show or like, but it really is just more about the process. And so that's where we doubled down, like, oh, this is that regardless of the brand, regardless of the problem, regardless of the output, great brands are the ones that are, focused and bound by some sort of sense of purpose that is connected to where they make their money, that they are defined by specific actions they take to reinforce it. And then on the communication side, how they talk about that. Well, they have to talk about it in an interesting way, in a memorable way, and a timely way, in a relevant way. And so where do they say it? Well, sometimes they say it on TikTok. Yeah. But sometimes they'll say it in a published book. And sometimes they'll say it, as a trailer to a movie. Like, we got so hung up on the label. It's really just like, what are you saying and where are you saying it and when are you saying it and how are you saying it, so that you drive growth in the business.
Yeah.
That's it. So that's what we focus on. This is about process, not about outcome.
Yeah.
Or output.
And do you find that sort of that focus allowed you to carve out, how did that allow you to start winning some contracts?
Well, that's where the speaking stuff really started. There was the book, there was the speaking, and they go, I'd love to do business with you. And then I show up with my team and it's like, it's Think 2 Sand. They're like, oh, you used the thing, you spoke. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I'd say it's so brilliant because when you're speaking, you're getting paid to do business development.
100%.
Like, again, I'm getting paid to market in front of it, and you're a brilliant speaker. I think that's the
Thank you.
I think that's the key. We sponsored one conference to be a speaker. It's first time that I did a sort of pay to
Yeah.
speak, because I was like, it's the right people I want to be in front of. It's our tech audience. It's the HR leaders. I'm like, you know what? Let's just try this out.
Yeah.
Not to do my own horn, best rated session of
Yeah. Of
the
course.
conference.
Naturally.
And the organizers came back to me, and I was like, "Oh, you guys are used to like Deloitte paying for, pardon Deloitte, right?
Yeah.
But like you're used to like a corporate sponsor with a speaker who like this is our services, and so the expectation that it was so wow.
Well, not only that,
different.
but they need to justify the money. So they're like, I want to see a return on this investment.
Yeah,
So if I paid $5,000, I need to. So I better mention that the stuff that we can do, and
as a
hopefully, if you
fit.
want to hire us, you can see me after the speech, and then it becomes a pitch slap, and it's disgusting.
Correct.
Or it's not disgusting. It's
Yeah, yeah.
it's just like it's cringy, and
Versus us just going up and doing our keynote, which is service to the audience. Had such an impact. And
yeah.
That's
But when that started happening, that's when I realized, like, oh, like I first went in going, they need to see Ron Tite, the speaker, with this agency. So it's called the Tite Group, and there needs to be this direct line. And then, do you know Neil Pasricha wrote the Book of Awesome?
Oh, I know that. Yes.
So Neil's a
Okay.
good friend and a great guy,
That's awesome.
great speaker
That's
and
awesome.
writer. Yeah, he's awesome. So Neil and I were going somewhere, and I said, just come to the office and we can leave from here. So Neil shows up to the then Tite Group offices, and he walks in and he's like, it's a thing. And I go, what do you
It's
mean?
real.
And he goes, there's people here. But like, I thought it was just you. Like I thought it was you in a basement. Because speakers, they have like their name and the company, and it's like just that. And he goes, you should change your name. I said, why would I change the name? He's like, oh, you have way more credibility if it's not your name, because everybody has these tiny little things that's their name. And I went, oh, maybe he's right. So I literally went to the team and I said, this is the brief on the new name. We need to turn the Tite Group into something new. And the brief is less tight, more group. So take my name off the door. And so we made that switch to Church+State. And I think it does. It works on the stage. It gives me a little more, I don't know. And sometimes I go back and forth. I'm like, oh, I should have just kept it. But I think it works. I think it works.
So another pivotal moment for you is sort of this transformation of away from just you, but to the group, and kind of thinking about the team as a whole.
Yep.
What are some of the team dynamics? Like, often when we're talking about these David versus Goliath stories, we're talking about the strategies that the Davids use, the contrarian strategies, or in your case, sort of the like, I'm going to go where people suck, like strategy. But often we go, and then we also ask, who are the leaders of these Davids? And so, we're learning a little bit about you and your characteristics, and the humility that you approached leadership with, and all the pieces. How was the team dynamics? Were there any things that you were extremely intentional about, or things that emerge in terms of creating a team that can deliver and that can survive in a competitive industry?
Well, I think the team they need you when they need you, and they don't when they don't. And so it's as much a learning curve for you as it is for them in terms of, as a founder, like when like now my technical role is chief strategy officer. But I was a creative director before. So sometimes a creative director, so you're like, am I commenting on this as the founder? Am I commenting on this as the strategy guy? Or am I commenting on this as the guy who was once a creative director who has a creative opinion? And so the danger is that I don't comment, because then I'm not engaged, and I'm not, but it's how you comment and what the expectations are around that comment. And so you end up in this place where, if I work with the director of strategy, it's this dance of like, I don't want to step on your toes, and, you tell me how I can best support you, and I have some thoughts on it, and I put a slide in there, and like, maybe, but hey, it's your call, let's go, your call, you got to own it. And her also being so respectful to say like, well, whatever you think, you have experience. And it's this diplomatic dance. And I think Ophelia, who's our director of strategy, who's an amazing and wonderfully bright human being. So her and I work really well together, where we just get that. I'm more involved now than I was before, just coming out of the pandemic and stuff. But there was a time pre-pandemic where I was not involved at all. And to the point that I met somebody and I thought they were a client. I'm like, hi, I'm Ron. And they go, yeah, I work for you. And I go, oh, gee, you just started, because I had been on the road, and, and I never wanted to be that guy again either. So
that's interesting. So you pulled yourself very much out for a little while.
Yeah.
And that's some of the, okay, so this is some of the advice that a lot of entrepreneurs get, right? Okay, well, you pull yourself out of the business, like set up the systems, get the team, right? And then you've got in recent years, you've got Paul Graham and Brian Chesky from Airbnb who talk about founder mode, which was like Brian realizing I needed to get back into the business and really reel this one back in.
Yeah.
Now it was a crisis. Pandemic hit. Airbnb, no one was booking in someone else's home, right? Like, and so he talks about this sort of misnomer that founders go through where they think they need to almost completely let go of the reins because they've got to get out. They got to just do strategy and they got to do the talks and thought leadership. But actually, we need founders to continuously still drive the innovation or their zone of genius, right? And so you sort of realize it in the moment where you don't recognize the staff, right? Like, okay, maybe I pulled myself too much out. What was the impetus to pull yourself that far out? And then when you do come back in, how do you hone in on your zone of genius for that?
I think so. I pulled myself out simply because I thought it was the right thing to do because that's what people say, right? And I had brought in people and given up equity and like it's yours, to the point that like I had majority equity. There were 3 of us at that point. I had majority equity, but I put a clause in the shareholders agreement that said, if for big decisions, it's best 2 out of 3. It's not by equity. You need to protect me from me because you're in the business daily. And if I make a decision as a founder that doesn't have enough insight because I'm not there, you need to protect me and you can overrule me.
Again, I've got to give you kudos to the humility that has, like truly the self-awareness. And keep going. But I think it's such a good insight to recognize that the collective hive is smarter than me.
Right.
And that's what you keep getting back to. Yeah. I trust the collective hive's brilliance. My brilliance is there.
Yeah. I think there's 2 ways at that. One way is you put in the shareholders agreement to protect yourself from yourself.
Yeah.
The other way is that you just listen to people. You know what I mean? Like you just, you're fully aware of that and you listen to their opinion and you take their opinion. And then it was the pandemic. I was like, oh, how do I best support this team? And so in the pandemic, it was, I best support this team by stepping in as creative director. That's the best way to support this team. Not something I've done in the last 10 years, but that's the best thing to do.
That's what they needed right now.
Right. That's what I'm going to do. So I stepped in for that. And then over time, it's like, I shouldn't be the creative director. It's not working. How can I best support this group? And I looked to Robin to, what if it was strategy? Because that's really where your heart is anyhow. That's really what you're working on. Okay, let's do that. So chief strategy officer. And then as you bring in more and more people, you just naturally gravitate to the zone of genius where you find the thing that nobody else in the organization can do. That's where you focus. And that's your best way to support them because that person doesn't exist inside the organization. So when the creative director didn't exist, that was the role to play. Then you see like, oh, that's not my zone of genius. I need to step out. We need to bring in somebody who it is their zone of genius. And so you just continually ask yourself, how can I best support this team? And sometimes it's getting out of the team's way because they're smarter than you. They have more insight than you. And that sometimes ego gets in the way. You're going to get it wrong sometimes. That's okay.
Yeah. Where was Church+State's zone of genius? Like so we talk about again, you look at Malcolm Gladwell's explanation of David versus Goliath, right? And he goes, essentially in the biblical parable and the story is that David approaches Goliath understanding that he can't win in a head-to-head battle. So he's got this slingshot. And Goliath is this huge, overgrown individual who actually can't see well and is just gonna smack you around, right? If you get close enough to them. So David doesn't get close. He keeps far away. He chooses his weapon, which social media content mark. He chooses the thing that other people can't do. He can't, the Goliath can't see. So I'm gonna hit him, from the side. Where was you sort of pick out your niche. Media properties and media properties need to be brands. Within that, what becomes your slingshot?
So the slingshot, I think, becomes process. Because our approach to solving the problems.
Yeah, and that's what people start to come to you for. They go, I like the process, the way you're going about it.
Yeah, exactly, because it's unique in this space. But when they come for that, I think they stay for relationships. I think they stay for care and kindness. I think they stay for insight. It's like, oh, well, whatever you guys do behind the scenes to solve these problems, I think you do that. And we're nimble, and we're all those things that the Davids are.
Yeah.
But I think the other thing, and I'm totally ripping this off from Louis. I just saw it yesterday, and I thought it was such fantastic insight, was Louis C.K. talked about the movie Rocky. What people forget is in the first movie, he loses the fight.
Yes.
So one, Sylvester Stallone writing that script The way you end that movie is he wins the fight. How does Sylvester Stallone, as a writer, go in and battle the Goliaths in Hollywood? He goes, not in this script. He doesn't win the fight. So he completely comes at it with integrity to create something no one's seen before. He doesn't win the fight. But he goes to his wife the night before and he says, I can't win this fight. And instead of saying, yes, you can, you're smart, you're big, she says, what are you going to do then? And Rocky decides he's just going to change the definition of victory. And it's not about beating him, but it's about lasting. And so, because your listeners, you out there, what they might be saying is, this guy has, his Church+State is not as big as BBDO. He hasn't beat BB. He's not, Goliath has taken him out. Change the definition of the victory. The victory is, I don't want to be that. I don't want to have 300 offices. My definition of victory is my definition of victory. And it's 20 people. And it's partners in Quebec where we're doing great work and are fun people that I want to hang out with and that we all make money at and everything. But so it's changing that definition of success and working towards that.
You change the rules of the game and you play a different game.
Yeah.
One of the stories that we often tell, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but the Savannah Bananas.
I wrote about them in my last book. Jesse Cole blurbed the book.
I didn't know you did. Okay, I gotta check because his story's making it through mine. Because I'm loving. Okay, so I'm gonna check out what you wrote about him because I think, and so maybe you can share a little bit because I think what's brilliant is that they changed the rules of the game. They literally rewrote the game of baseball so that it could be more fun. They play banana ball now, and they're recruiting other teams to play this new game.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I mean, it's such a great story because what he did was like most disruptors, they look at an industry and they go, what's the problem here, right? So he starts getting consumer insight. Why aren't you coming to the games? Why aren't you coming to the game? And they give him all those bullshit, superficial reasons. Your prices are too high. So he goes, okay, we invested in a ticketing system. We're going to cap the prices. No StubHub deals. Okay, what else? Well, there's ads in the ballpark, right? And those are just BS reasons. He gets to the heart of it, and people are like, God, it's just so boring and long. So he goes to the establishment. He goes to the league that the team was originally a part of and goes, I recommend, given this consumer journey map that I've done, and the biggest issue we have here is that we're bloody boring and we're not competing against other baseball leagues, we're competing against the internet. So I say we cap it at 90 minutes. And the leaders of the league, the other owners say what every category says when a new player enters. Are you insane? That's not how we do it around here. This is baseball. It's 9 innings. It's meant to be boring. That's what this is. That's how we do business around here. So he says, fine. I'm going to leave this one. I'm going to leave the establishment. I'm going to start my own league. And in this league, it's 90 minutes. There's no bunting. And by the way, if you hit a foul ball into the stands and a fan catches it, you're out. Because if you really want to make an engaging experience, involve everybody in the process. You know, Savannah Bananas were on Jimmy Fallon just last week or 2 weeks ago. He did a tour of ballparks driving incremental $12 million in revenue. He has a wait list for tickets in Savannah that's 2 million people long. It's an amazing business. Now, what you may say, it's not worth as much as the New York Yankees. So he failed. No. He changed the definition of victory.
I think that's what's so powerful in so many of these David versus Goliath stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're still Davids.
They're still Davids. They're still, and that's what keeps them. And the Goliaths are still around, and they're there, and they just slowly tumble through the next phase. And,
yeah.
You know.
Or this is what happens, right? Either they're Davids and they stay Davids,
yeah,
and they love being Davids. Got my slingshot, I'm good to go. I'm more than happy. Or they're Davids who aspire to be Goliaths. And they think, wouldn't it be amazing to be that lazy, slow, bureaucratic enterprise organization that prints money, that is publicly traded, that I get a whack of dough out of this.
Yeah.
And some people, that's what they define as success. They don't want to, they aspire to be the enterprise that will be at one point taken out by a David.
By another David.
And that's cool too. There's nothing wrong with being that company.
If you become a Goliath, you are now watching out for all the Davids that are out to take your lunch. Yeah. Do you have a moment in your career and the building of Church+State? Is there a moment, aside from the moment where you didn't have cash flow, was there a moment of like, I'm ready to quit. This is tough. This is, I can't, like, it's too much.
It was 3 times a week. But luckily, you know what it's like? I have very young kids, and they're both playing baseball, right? So I got a 5-year-old who's playing baseball. They go from hitting, and then the next phase, they play the infield, and then they play the outfield. course, the infield and the outfield in T-ball is boring as hell. Your only hope is that they get such an excitement from hitting and getting a hit that it carries them through until the next time they come to bat. And that they don't go, the hit was worth less than the boredom of playing the infield and the outfield, and I want to quit. So that's what it is. It's knowing that the victories, however you define them, whether that's seeing one of your employees just nail something and nail a presentation, you see them being really fulfilled, or whether you personally get a high five or do something, or there's an infusion of cash because of a new business, or whatever it is, that those victories outweigh the challenges of it, where you go, why would any sane person do this when you can just go get a job? Like, why would you sign up for this? Well, it's because those victories, they carry you through.
What were some of the big victories? Was there a moment for you of like, you know what, this is working, like this is working, we made it?
I'll never forget the moment, because when you start, you're like, you're the strategist and the creative director and the thing, and you get, because of all that, I remember we had this like place in the office where there was like an elevated bar table kind of thing, and I looked out at the people, and everyone was busy. And everybody was working on something, and two people were talking about something, and this one is like sending a file, blah, blah, blah. All that's happening. And I don't know what anybody's working on. I have no idea what that conversation is about. I have no idea what that person is sending. I have no clue. And that was the first time I was like, I could just walk out the door. They're on it. They're doing it. They're capable. And it's working. And so that was a really big aha moment, because coming from a blue collar family, you work by the hour.
Yeah.
For us as speakers, this was Brian Buffini, who's a really wonderful guy, runs an amazing training development company. Brian sat down with me at one point from a speaking perspective, and he said, when are you going to say goodbye to blue collar Ron? You mean the part of me that's from Oshawa? I'm proud of that blue collar stuff. And he goes, no, not that. He said, you just made X dollars speaking for an hour. What would your mom, my mom passed away years ago, what would your mom say if she heard what you made for that hour? I said, she wouldn't believe it. She wouldn't believe that that was my fee for the hour. And he goes, yeah, exactly. And you should be proud of that. But it's your hourly wage. These people want more from you. They want courses, and they want guidebooks, and they want training and development. They want more from you, and you're not giving it to them because you're showing up with a blue collar mentality of that you only get paid when you work the hour. You're not 28 anymore, you know? And that was a real mind shift for me, where I walked out of there going like, hey, he's right.
I had it put to me as, are you building a practice or a business? And similar, like a practice, you can only deliver when you're there. And while a business can take the ideas of Ron and the values and his brilliance and systemize it in a way that can be delivered without him there.
Yeah, 100%.
That's a cool moment for you to reflect on. So you've redefined what victory looks like in this David versus Goliath. And I think that's a lesson for a lot of our audience members. That's a lesson for you. You've given us some strategies of how to be a David, like, to redefine the space that you're working in, to find your slingshot through some of the blue ocean strategies, but where, and what does it look like today for you? So you've built a team, you've had some success with Church+State. What's next? What's next for this David?
Yeah. Chief strategy officer for Church+State. Spent a lot of time in biz dev. Of just like, what are those next opportunities and how would we operate within a specific category? So we just started getting our first assignment for the province of Ontario. So that's a very different vibe, working with the public sector, but some really important work there. So it's kind of figuring out some of those. We've partnered and kind of sold a part of the business, and we have some equity in Substance Montreal, and it was a wonderful organization. And so we built Group 219, which is this shared entity that operates in Toronto, in Montreal, in strategy, creative, content, PR, media. So we've got everything. We've got both official languages, all of that. And kind of that Group 219 perspective of like, well, how does that grow as a group is something I'm really interested in. And then, that's where does that go? And always exploring that. Certainly the training and development space is a place, is of interest to me. And it's just kind of like, how do we react and respond?
Yeah.
And how would we advise people to react and respond to these situations? So I just love that the intellectual rigor that kind of goes into what we do.
Yeah. One of the principles of high performing teams that we teach and that aligns often with a lot of what we see in the Davids, is that they are centered on purpose. And your latest book, Purpose of Purpose, tell me a little bit about how that fit in for you, because I'm sort of hearing Church+State was an endeavor, an opportunity, some entrepreneurialism, some creative efforts, but now you're at a stage in your life where you're also now thinking of purpose a bit more. So where has purpose taken you, and how have you seen purpose perhaps as a strategic advantage for the Davids?
Yeah. So I think the book came out of, I have a very specific process around writing books and content and all that stuff. And so it started out as a completely different topic. It was initially called Now What? And that just changed along the way. And the reason it changed was because I was sick of people getting purpose wrong. That I was tired of, rage commenting on LinkedIn of going like, that's not purpose.
You've got for any of the audience members, you've got to follow Ron on LinkedIn, because there's some good comedic content. I feel like half the time I'm reading your captions and I'm learning, but I'm also laughing at your rage. Something.
Thank you. Well, I was tired of rage commenting. That's not purpose. Because I think purpose is a fundamental belief that drives what you sell and how you grow. It is strategically connected to where you make your money. And so there are far too many organizations coming out of the pandemic. They're like, oh, no, we're lovely here. Our purpose is to save the earth. And you're like, you make a cracker. What are you talking about? Like we believe in human rights and equality. Really? That's like saying our purpose is to not murder people. Like those are expectations. I hope you believe in human rights and equality. I hope you believe.
In this day and age, I hope you believe in human rights. There's some people.
You never know. So I just like, that's not purpose. That's not purpose. That's not purpose. So I was like I got to stop saying that. Just say what purpose is and purpose. The purpose of purpose is growth. So that's where I started writing that. And
what's so the purpose of purpose is growth. What's the central concept here?
So this is the central concept, that if purpose is strategical and not connected to where you make your money, but it is a belief above, it is a belief that informs what you sell. It's not what you sell, but it informs a belief that informs what you sell and how you grow. So purpose should chart a path for growth. And so the metaphor here is that if you're playing basketball and you go down the court and you stop, for you to grow in that moment, you need to make another play. And so you need to decide what that next action is going to be. Are you going to pass that way? Are you going to throw it under the hoop? Like, are you going to throw it over here? You have a pivot foot in basketball. Your pivot foot is the one that is anchored to the floor. It's the one that doesn't move. It's the one that keeps you in one place. So it prevents you from doing what a lot of founders want to do, which is just run willy-nilly all over the court. And those people are like, what we like to do is we like to, take stuff and throw it against the wall and see what sticks. And like, what? Like, how endless is your budget? Like, you need to be better than that. You just need to be better than that. And so purpose is your pivot foot. It focuses you. It guides you. It keeps you grounded so that it informs your next move towards growth. Most people see the role of purpose as being, it's a nice sign on the wall so that people feel good about working here. But there's no connection to the actions that are driven by people inside the organization. So I wanted to write that book, and it's doing really well because I think people were equally as disappointed in purpose, I guess. Like, so there's this,
because it can feel too flaky, right?
Yeah.
Like,
exactly.
you've got a little bit of a Gen Z movement. They go, we're saving PDFs, not whales.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
okay, yeah, your purpose of like.
But I get it too, right?
And especially, I mean, this week as we're talking about it, founder of Ben & Jerry, Jerry, chooses to step down.
Yep.
Because it he's being muzzled in his views. And again, despite where your views stand on the challenge that's happening in the Middle East, but again, Ben & Jerry has always stood for these human rights. And I have founded this business on my ability to stand for these human rights.
Yeah.
And you are trying to take that away from me. And that was our initial agreement. And now I'm walking away. I just found that so inspiring and so powerful. And was talking to my wife, I was like, we need to go buy some Ben & Jerry. We're like, wait, no, actually no. Wait, do we buy it? Do we?
No. But I also think that two things can be true, right? I think that Goliath is going to be Goliath. Goliath is going to act like Goliath. You know that. When you take the check from Goliath.
Goliath's check. Yeah.
Goliath is going to be Goliath. Eventually, Goliath is going to return to being Goliath. And so two things can be true. It can be true that Unilever goes, you know what? We're responsible for the bottom line of this. We gave you the check and we're gonna say how this goes. And you may disagree with that, and that's totally cool. And it may also be true that the two founders go, we're not doing this anymore.
Yeah.
That's cool. I am inspired by their act, but I don't think we should be saying, what's wrong with Unilever? How are they doing this? Like, this is Goliath being Goliath. This
This is what we expected.
And that doesn't make them evil. It does make them Goliath.
It does make them Goliath. They're protecting, because the Goliaths protect the shareholder value above all else. That's sort of what it feels like. Like they choose, if you were to, I think Jim Collins does it similarly. Idea of like purpose and profit in this sort of yin and yang concept in his, one of his books, Good to Great, right? And as if you chase just profit, then over time you simply, milk all the cows and they die.
Yeah.
And if you chase just purpose, you might fall into just being a charity and a nonprofit. And like the one feeds the other. Like your purpose allows you to make more profit. Your profit allows you to do your purpose more.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
like, and I think there's that. And so I really enjoy hearing your take and kind of seeing how that fits into. Well, Ron, this has been fun. I've really enjoyed it. Ron, let's end with some pieces of advice for the Davids, for those who are in the current battle and the thick of it all. What's a leadership piece of advice? What's a team advice? And then what's a strategic advice? Kind of those three buckets.
From a sort of strategy perspective, I think it's like just hey, work to solve people's problems. Like, what are the real problems that exist? Not the rational problem that you think people need mortgages, so I'm going to be a mortgage broker. Like, what are the rational problems they have or the emotional problems they have, and how can you solve those problems in an efficient way? From a team perspective, if the team is going to win, the team needs to know what the rules of engagement are. Like, what is the game that this team is playing, and who are they playing against? And so it's that, how are you defining the victory? And however you define the victory, you are going to get the behaviors that reinforce and pursue that victory. So if you say, hey, our only victory is cash, is I want as much money as possible, don't be surprised when you find unethical behavior leading to generating of sales or something like that. Because you've said it's all about the cash. They are going to pursue that however they can. So define your victory to get the behaviors. And then from a leadership perspective, I think, still maybe as an entrepreneurial thing, my very first boss, Gordon Cassidy, said, only rocket science is rocket science. Everything else is figure-outable. The rest of us are kind of smart enough to do it. So you can figure out anything, and if you can't figure it out, then you got to go out and find the people who can help you do it.
Well, Ron, thank you. This was fun. It was good to get to hear some of your stories and kind of live them here with you. So I appreciate your time. I appreciate your energy. I love your storytelling every time. So.
Thank you. Thanks, Fahd. Thanks.
This was fun.